What happens when one of Hollywood's most disciplined stars walks into a studio expecting routine promotion, only to be cornered in a live ambush? You're about to witness one of the most explosive, uncomfortable, and revealing interviews ever captured on daytime television. This wasn't just a PR disaster. It was a collision of belief, power, and ego that spiraled out of control in front of a stunned studio audience. This is the story of how Tom Cruise came to The View as a guest and left as a flashpoint. But before we unravel the tension that boiled over that morning, hit subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this one has more emotional twists than Mission Impossible 8. It started the way it always does. Smiles, applause, studio lights bouncing off polished smiles and manicured personas. Tom Cruise arrived to promote his latest action spectacle, breezing backstage with the same boyish charm that's carried him through decades of Hollywood. Whoopi Goldberg introduced him warmly. Sarah Haynes kicked off the interview with the usual softball. "Tom, the stunts in this one are next level. Tell us what training was like." Tom beamed. "This one pushed me further than ever. I was hanging off a real cliff in Norway. We rehearsed for weeks. I work with the best in the business. And honestly, I think audiences can feel when it's real." Sonny Hostin leaned in. "And what was the energy like on set? With your cast, those high-stakes scenes must require total trust." But Tom nodded. "They were phenomenal. Every person grips, stunt drivers, makeup, they brought their A-game. You can't fake that kind of trust. It has to be earned." For 10 solid minutes, the conversation flowed effortlessly. Behind-the-scenes stories, training montages, laughter, applause. Cruise at his best, controlled, charismatic, magnetic. But then the temperature shifted. Joy Behar sat forward, her arms unfolded. Her expression changed from passive host to prosecutor. The room felt it instantly. "Tom," she said, voice cool and razor sharp, "let's talk about something I think our audience actually cares about." The studio tensed. "Your involvement with Scientology. For years, critics have accused you of using your fame to whitewash an organization many consider a dangerous cult. How do you justify promoting a group accused of harassment, abuse, and tearing families apart?" Silence. The crowd stopped clapping. Sarah's smile dropped. Sonny looked away. Whoopi blinked, then turned her head sharply toward Joy. Tom didn't speak for several seconds. When he finally did, the smile was gone. His voice was low, measured, controlled. "Joy," he said, "I came here to talk about a film I've poured my heart into. I believe in religious freedom. I think everyone has the right to believe what gives their life meaning. What I don't believe in," he added, his voice sharpening, "is being ambushed about my personal faith on national television." Joy didn't blink. "Tom, with all due respect, this is not just personal. This is public. You are the face of an organization accused of destroying lives. You've defended it repeatedly. So let me ask you again, do you feel any responsibility for the people who say they've been harmed?" Tom sat back, his jaw clenched. "I think you're misinformed. And I think you're using your platform not to ask questions, but to attack something you don't understand." Joy leaned in, her tone hardening. "As it an attack to cite lawsuits, FBI investigations, countries that have outright banned it? Or does accountability only count when it's someone else's belief system under fire?" Tom's hands gripped the chair. His voice dropped an octave. "You are painting millions of people with the same brush because of stories you've chosen to believe. That's not journalism, Joy. That's bias." Joy's smile was razor thin. "Tom, calling something bias doesn't make it false. I've spoken to people who escaped, who lost children, who were cut off from their families because of the organization you defend. If that's not worth talking about, what is?" Tom's eyes narrowed. The chill in his voice was unmistakable. "Joy, what you're doing right now is the exact kind of behavior that creates hate and misunderstanding. You hide behind questions, but what you really want is to shame, Joy's reply was instant. Cutting. No, Tom. I want clarity. And frankly, your defensiveness proves you don't have it. If your beliefs were so pure, so harmless, you wouldn't look like you're ready to flip this table. Tom's voice cracked like a whip. You ambushed me. You pushed me into a corner and called it journalism. That's not integrity. It's spectacle. I didn't walk in here to be interrogated about a faith you've clearly already judged. Joy fired back. You didn't walk in here expecting any challenge. That's the problem? You're used to yes, men and stuntmen, not accountability. Tom stood. His voice was ice. You don't know me. Joy stood too. No. But I know what power looks like when it goes unchecked. You don't get to hide behind charm while real people suffer in silence. Tom took a breath. His hands clenched, then released. I don't hide, he said quietly. But I also won't be lectured by someone who confuses interrogation with truth. He turned to the camera. To anyone watching, practice your faith, live your truth, and don't let anyone shame you for it, even if they have a microphone. He walked off set. The studio was frozen. Joy sat slowly. The other host stared in stunned silence. Whoopi finally broke it with a flat, stunned murmur. Well, that went off script. Joy's expression hardened. Her voice, now sharp enough to draw blood, cut through the rising tension. Despicable, she repeated, staring Tom down. You want to talk about despicable? She leaned forward, eyes locked. Let's talk about the families torn apart. Let's talk about people who've been harassed, stalked, silenced. Children taken from parents under something called policy. That's despicable. Tom's composure was starting to fracture. His jaw tensed, his fists clenched, but his voice stayed just within the boundaries of control. Joy, you're cherry-picking the worst accusations, some of which have been debunked in court, and presenting them as fact. That's not journalism. That's character assassination. Joy's voice rose, sharp and unrelenting. Character assassination. Tom, I'm citing sworn testimonies, court filings, the FBI investigations. These are not theories, these are legal facts. Sunny tried to step in, her voice tentative. Maybe we could reframe this. But Joy cut her off. No, Sunny. This is the conversation we need to have. If someone uses their fame to promote something controversial, they should expect hard questions, not applause. Tom's eyes narrowed. His voice darkened. Hard questions. You haven't asked me a single thing about my actual role, my actual experiences. You came in with a script. You're not interviewing me, Joy. You're accusing me. Joy leaned back slowly, a cold smile forming. Fine. Let's make it simple. Have you ever personally witnessed the practices former members describe? Disconnection policies, forced labor, punitive isolation. Yes or no? Tom didn't flinch, but his reply came colder than before. I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. Joy didn't miss a beat. Of course not. Because you have seen it. You've been part of it. And you're too much of a coward to say it out loud. The word hit the studio like a slap. Tom's face went red. His voice was barely restrained. Did you just call me a coward? If the shoe fits, Joy replied flatly. A brave person owns the truth. You're running from it. Whoopi tried to regain control. Okay, let's all take a breath. But Tom wasn't backing down. His voice was rising. No, Whoopi. I want to hear Joy explain this. How does asking someone to violate their religious confidentiality make them brave? Joy scoffed. Religious confidentiality. Is that what we're calling it now? When people cover up systemic abuse. Tom stood halfway from his chair. That's it. I'm not sitting here while you slander me. Sit down, Tom. Joy didn't flinch. Her voice turned from sarcastic to commanding. You don't get to walk away just because it's uncomfortable. Tom sat, slowly, but his body was stiff with fury. His voice now had steel in it. Joy, I've done interviews for 40 years. I've faced critics, cynics, even hostile press. But I've never sat across from someone so deliberately cruel and so completely unprofessional. Joy arched an eyebrow. Her voice was soaked in acid. What's unprofessional is using your fame to lure people into a system that breaks families. What's unprofessional is collecting checks from an institution that's been accused of human trafficking. Tom cut in, disbelief in his voice. Are you serious? What do you call it? Joy shot back. When people work for years with no pay, no freedom, and no ability to leave. When their passports are taken, their movement restricted. Sarah made another effort to interrupt. Maybe we should pivot. Sarah, please. Joy didn't even look at her. Her eyes were still locked on Tom. This matters. Tom's jaw looked like it might crack from tension. His voice came slow, tight, lethal. You don't want answers, Joy. You want a spectacle. You came prepared to humiliate me. But you don't know the first thing about integrity. Or belief. Joy didn't blink. And you don't know the first thing about accountability. You call it belief. I call it complicity. The silence was thick. The cameras were still rolling. But now the whole studio could feel it. Something had snapped. Tom's voice was low but crackling with fury. Joy, you're describing labor violations that could happen in any organization. You're not describing my religion. Joy's laugh was cold, mocking. Your religion. Is it part of your religion to harass journalists who criticize it? To hire private investigators to follow defectors? That's not faith, Tom. That's fear disguised as doctrine. Tom's jaw tightened. His voice came through gritted teeth. I've never done any of those things. But Joy didn't flinch. Maybe not personally. But you fund the machine that does. You endorse it. You protect it. Tom leaned in, his voice dropping to a warning tone. Joy, you're accusing me of criminal behavior based on conspiracy theories and debunked internet trash. That's not just reckless. It's defamatory. Joy's eyes lit up, as if he'd handed her a weapon. Are you threatening to sue me, Tom? Is that how your organization handles criticism? Through intimidation and lawsuits? I'm not threatening anything. Tom snapped. I'm pointing out that you're making false, dangerous claims about me on live television. A Joy tilted her head, almost amused. False. Everything I've said is public record. If you want to sue me for reading from court documents, go ahead. Wouldn't be the first time your group tried to silence critics. Sunny shifted nervously in her chair. Joy, maybe we could refocus on Tom's new film. His film. Joy turned on her. Sunny, how can we talk about stunts and box office when the man sitting across from us is using those profits to bankroll an organization accused of abuse? That did it. Tom's patience finally snapped. Accused, Joy. Accused. You've been tossing these claims around like they're gospel. Now suddenly they're just allegations. Joy wasn't backing down. Allegations corroborated by hundreds of consistent testimonies. Across decades. Tom scoffed. Testimonies that have been discredited in court. Some have, Joy admitted. But not all. And not the pattern. Not the trauma. Tom shook his head, disgusted. His voice dropped to something darker. Joy, this is the same tactic used against Jewish people in the 1930s. Take isolated claims, strip away context, and use it to demonize a whole faith. The audience gasped. Joy went pale, then red. Did you just compare my questions to Nazi propaganda? Her voice shook. Is that where you're going now? Tom's tone was cold as ice. I'm comparing your methods. The way you cherry-pick claims. The way you twist narrative. The way you use fear to justify prejudice. Joy was practically shaking. Tom, that is the most offensive thing I've ever heard on this stage. You're comparing journalism to hate propaganda, because I asked hard questions. You call this journalism? Tom snapped. You haven't brought a single piece of evidence, just accusations. Smears, and you expect me to prove a negative on air. Joy's voice was pure fury now. The evidence is out there for anyone who bothers to look. Tom stared her down. Then why didn't you bring any of it with you today? But Joy faltered, only for a moment. But Tom saw it. Because, she said stiffly, I assumed you'd be honest about your involvement. Instead, you've been deflecting, hiding behind persecution complexes, and making disgusting comparisons. The Tom rose from his chair suddenly, the scrape of it echoing through the studio. Joy. I came here to discuss my work, my film, not to be dragged into a trial by media. Set down, Tom. Joy said sharply. We're not done. Tom remained standing. Yes, Joy. We are. This isn't an interview. It's an ambush. And I won't be part of it. Joy stood now, face to face, tension radiating. My agenda is the truth, Tom. Giving a platform to those your organization silences. Your agenda is ratings. Tom snapped. You want a viral clip. A confrontation. You've traded journalism for spectacle. That one landed. Joy blinked, then narrowed her eyes. How dare you? Her voice cracked. How dare you accuse me of exploiting victims for ratings? Tom stared her down, voice quiet but sharp. Everything you've done in the last 15 minutes has been designed to provoke. Not inform. You don't want answers. You want outrage. Outrage is warranted. Joy shot back. When the powerful go unchallenged, silence becomes complicity. No. Joy. Tom's voice was hard now. What you're doing is using your platform to attack someone for what they believe. That's not accountability. That's bigotry. Joy's face twisted. You want to talk about bigotry? What about the people who've been followed, blackmailed, sued into silence? I've never done that, Tom growled. Not directly, Joy snapped. But you've enabled it, every dollar, every interview. Every time you defended them, you made yourself part of it. Tom's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You're accusing me of complicity in crimes. On national television. With no evidence. Truth is a defense against defamation, Joy replied, coldly. And the truth is, your organization has a record, a documented history of abuse. Tom's eyes narrowed. Documented by whom? Bitter ex-members, tabloid reporters, lawyers chasing headlines. Joy's voice sharpened. Documented by federal courts, by sworn testimony, by the FBI. Tom. So now the entire government's out to get my religion. Tom asked, voice rising. Is that your theory? No. Joy shot back. But your theory seems to be if someone has faith, they're above scrutiny. But Tom's face was a mask of rage. You're demonizing a group because of a few bad stories. That's not journalism. That's religious persecution. It's not persecution to ask hard questions, Joy shouted. It's not bigotry to tell the truth. Whoopi finally cut in, loud and clear. We need to take a break. Now, no. Joy turned on her co-host. He doesn't get to walk away. Tom stared down at Joy, breathing hard. I don't owe you anything. This isn't a courtroom. And you're not a judge. Maybe not, Joy said, her voice lower but no less intense. But the audience deserves to know who they're supporting when they buy a ticket to your movie. That line hit like a punch. Tom's face drained of color, then flushed again with fury. Are you suggesting people boycott my work because of my faith? I'm suggesting, Joy said with a freezing smile, that people should know what their dollars are endorsing. Tom was shaking now, voice trembling with fury. What you're calling transparency is religious discrimination. You want to cancel me for what I believe. Joy didn't blink. When you use your fame to promote that belief publicly, it's fair game. Tom's final line came like a strike. Accused, Joy. Not proven, not convicted. Accused. And you're treating that like gospel because it fits your narrative. Because, Joy said, fire in her voice. Sometimes the pattern is the proof. Multiple accusers, consistent patterns, court documents, lies. Joy's words were clipped, deliberate. Tom exploded. Joy, you're spreading propaganda. And you're doing it because you hate what I believe in. Joy's smile widened, victorious, like a trap had just snapped shut. There it is, she said softly. The real Tom Cruise, Not the charming star, the angry cultist who can't take criticism. That word cult landed like a slap. Tom froze, face unreadable, voice suddenly ice. Joy, you just crossed a line you can't uncross. What line? She sneered. The one where I finally say what everyone else is afraid to. Tom stood, calm but furious, and began unfastening his microphone. Each movement slow. Measured final? Know the line? He said coldly. Where you stopped pretending to be a journalist and exposed yourself as a bigot with a broadcast slot. Don't you dare walk away from me. Joy snapped, her voice rising. Don't you dare run just because things got uncomfortable. But Tom set the mic gently on his chair. This stopped being a conversation the moment you turned it into a public shaming over my faith. Joy scoffed. Your faith is tied to your work, Tom. You promote this organization in every interview. You platform it in every press junket. Tom didn't look at her. He looked directly into the camera. To the viewers watching, I came here today to talk about a film I'm proud of, made by hardworking, talented people. Instead, I've been dragged through a religious inquisition based on hearsay and hate. Joy's voice cracked from volume. You don't get to make a dramatic exit and pretend that's an answer. You owe people an explanation. Tom turned to her. One last time. I owe them entertainment, Joy. That's what they tuned in for. What you've given them today is division, resentment, bigotry. Joy was almost breathless. Tom, the only bigotry here is coming from the organization that rips families apart and terrorizes dissenters. Tom was already walking toward the edge of the stage. Without looking back, he said, the only hatred I've seen today is yours. You've spent 20 minutes attacking my religion under the mask of journalism. That's not just unprofessional, it's un-American. American! Joy shouted after him. Tom, what's un-American is using your celebrity to pull people into a dangerous machine. Tom stopped, turned, one last time. What's un-American is using your platform to fuel religious persecution. What's un-American is inviting a guest just to publicly smear them. What's un-American is trying to destroy someone's career because you don't agree with their personal beliefs. The Joy followed him, her voice high, cracking. These aren't just beliefs when they break families and silence victims. This affects real people. Tom stopped again, face steel, eyes locked. Everything you've said today has been based on rumors, allegations, and conspiracy theories. Not one piece of evidence. You ignored every word I said in response. That's not journalism. That's a witch hunt. A witch hunt. Joy gasped. Tom, I asked the questions any responsible journalist would. No, Joy. Tom interrupted, voice final. You didn't ask. You accused. You judged. You condemned. This wasn't a conversation. It was a public execution based on your personal prejudice. And I won't be your next victim. With that, Tom turned and walked off the stage. Joy shouted after him, but the words barely landed. The audience sat frozen. The cameras kept rolling. The silence was thunderous. Joy turned back to the other hosts, her face flushed, not just with anger, but something deeper. A flicker of regret, or maybe defeat. The silence stretched, until finally, Whoopi exhaled and muttered, Yeah, we need a commercial break. And that is how one of Hollywood's most bankable stars became the center of one of television's most explosive confrontations. What began as a routine promo spiraled into a national spectacle, thanks to Joy Behar's relentless interrogation and Tom Cruise's defiant walk-off. Now the question is yours. Was Tom right to walk away? Or should he have stayed and fought back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more moments where celebrity meets controversy and everything explodes.